Hey, welcome. So I'm not going to waste your time speaking about bullshit. I'm going to get straight into the value. In this webinar, it's going to be about 45 minutes to an hour long. Let's see how long we film. You're going to learn how to 3x your income in around 45 days while working less and scaling more. No, it isn't bullshit, because in this webinar, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. So you yourself, you might be hitting some sort of plateau. You're making between $2,000 and $4,000, maybe even less. And you're considering, like, how do I get to that next stage? How do I get to that next level? And this is a problem a lot of freelancers have. Probably 97% of the freelancers all have this problem. They don't really understand how to get to that next stage. And the secret is very simple. I can tell it you now. It's just treating yourself like a business. But most freelancers just treat themselves as individuals working for other clients and so on, and never actually treating themselves as a business. And I had this problem. When I was much younger, when I was 19, I stupidly dropped out of school and bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok. And the only way to support myself was through my freelance income, working remotely on big platforms such as Upwork. But I couldn't command high rates. The highest rates I could command were like $20, $25 an hour. And I was just working my ass off. I wasn't even able to enjoy the places I was living in. I was working so much, and my friends back home saw my Instagrams of me in Bali and so on, but they didn't actually see all of the hustle and crunch and whatnot I was putting in. I wasn't enjoying my life. I wasn't living a good lifestyle. And so I really wanted to figure out, like, why? Why can people charge $75 an hour? Why can people charge $125 an hour? Is it just because of experience? Is it just because they're older? Of course not. The reason is because of perceived value, how the client actually perceives the value that you're giving to them. And it's got nothing to do with the hard skills themselves. It's got everything to do with what's around the hard skills, the sales process, the marketing, the customer experience. And we're going to go through all of this on the webinar today. So when I actually dropped out and I was living and bouncing around and trying to increase my hourly, well, eventually I found this mentor. His name was Julian. He's a really cool German guy. And he told me this idea that actually it's just how you package things. Everyone just wants it packaged in the correct way. They want the benefit of knowing that you're going to come in, do the right thing the first time, deliver the maximum amount of value, and that's it. There's going to be no issues, no problems, none of this, freelance scares a lot of people have on Upwork. And as soon as I started implementing these strategies and tactics, my hourlies literally flipped overnight. And that isn't an exaggeration. You're going to learn how to do this in this webinar. That isn't an exaggeration. I literally tripled my hourlies from $25 to $75 on Upwork using this, and was able to leverage these skills to get myself off Upwork. Well, why did I want to get myself off Upwork? Because I was dependent on it. You see, if you're dependent on a platform such as Upwork or Fiverr or any other freelance platform, and you haven't diversified your leads and your lead generation, then you're completely beholden to whatever that company says, whatever happens to it. If they go bankrupt, you go bankrupt, and so on and so on. And in fact, you can Google this. If you Google why you should never use Upwork ever, you'll find this article I wrote. And it's a small story that I'll go through which illustrates this example perfectly. In 2016, I was making good money on Upwork, and instead of making like $20, $25 an hour, I decided to package my services, and I was doing data analytics for e-commerce. That was my specialization, which I'll talk about later in the webinar and why that's so important. So I was doing this data analytics and for this firm, and it happened to be an expungement service. And essentially what they do is they take federal convicts and they clean their records such that they can, vote, get loans, credit, buy guns, travel, and whatnot. And it's a very important service. But when I was actually in their system, I realized that me, some random kid from England living in God knows where, in Thailand at the time probably, was able to access like 50,000 ex-prisoners' entire life, their address, their full names, their social security, and I was blown away by what these people were doing. They were essentially just hucksters, con men, a few guys running this service, not really caring, very haphazard, and treating people's data poorly. So when the time came for me to submit all the work, I did it, and I asked for payment. And during the payment process, when you're giving the kind of reviews and whatnot, I wrote to Upwork and I told them what happened. Well, when this happened, the other parties simply disputed against me. They said I hadn't done the work, it was bad and whatnot. Well, I had done the same thing 30, 40 times before, exactly the same way, and no one had any problems. It was these guys, and because I did this dispute. Well, what did Upwork do? Of course, they sided with me and gave me the money, right? No. They kept my money and completely blocked me from the platform. And that drove me to write this article where I exposed what was going on. Unfortunately, I was quite a good marketer, so I blew it up. It got like 3 million views in 2 months, and it ended with the CMO of Upwork, and you can even read this guy's comment, literally phoning me and asking me to take it down. You see, completely depending on Upwork, and when I got blocked was a turning point for me, because I realized that I can go outside to other places and other communities and network online to also find these clients, and most of the times they're better. Most of the time, there's, the clients that you find through referrals or through online communities are far better than what you're going to find on Upwork. And you're also not completely beholden to their systems and whatever they might say. And so that's why I started to create this course and these ideas and teach other people how they can essentially just flip their pricing overnight, start focusing on their sales, their marketing, their customer experience, and building a specialization and building authority in that specialization to really elevate them to the next level. And if you stay to the end, we have an awesome giveaway, well, not really a giveaway, just a freebie, which is our LinkedIn guide. So a lot of people seriously lack on LinkedIn, but the first thing a client will do is Google your name and go on your LinkedIn and see what you've done. And a lot of people have very poor LinkedIns, even their titles, their bios, they just aren't that good. So we have a complete guide that you can essentially just copy and paste for your own LinkedIn. It's going to work 100% and convert clients like crazy. So perceived value, that's going to be the common theme throughout. That's the only thing you need to know as a freelancer to get to the next level, and it's made up of a few key components. And we're going to go over the 5 main ones right now. The first key component of perceived value is being super specialized, and I call that instant specialization. It's not as hard as you might think. When you start specializing, you're literally able to flip your pricing and become an in-demand specialist who clients are happy to pay 5 times more than your competition. They'll love you for it. Instant specialization is a key component of perceived value. If you're not doing it, if you're still a generalist, you strongly must consider doing this right away and thinking about your path towards it. The second most important thing of perceived value is getting better clients. Now that doesn't mean huge companies or whatever it might be, no. It means constantly being present online 24/7. Online networking is the new networking, whether it's Slack groups, job boards, forums, whatever it might be. You have to constantly be hustling online, building a presence, building authority, building lead generation channels that are always coming in for you. Well, why is that? Why is it that you just can't have free clients and be happy? Well, you can do that, and you can just have a couple of clients and be happy, but you're never going to grow like this. Once you have the abundance mindset, meaning you can turn clients down, which is a very important thing to have within your business when you're not growing fast enough, or you're growing too fast that you can't actually apply the value to clients, and you're going to be in a very luxurious position because this is going to allow you to massively increase your rates in order to let other clients in. The third is selling better, and this is the weak point of most freelancers. They don't understand the sales process. For most people, it's just a Skype call and a few chats and sending over their portfolio, and that's it. And then you have a test week, and then we see how it goes, blah, 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 blah. No. I teach how to sell like an agency, how to sell like you're selling a $50,000 a month product. Whatever you're selling is always worth to essentially oversell. Not in the sense of being on a call and selling like crazy, but packaging and proposing in such a way that you just seem awesome, that you know exactly what you've done, doing, that you've done this before, that you could do it over and over again, and it's just a skill that you've essentially perfected. You're an expert at it. Most people think that the sales is literally just a case of persuading and convincing someone else that they should work with you. No. It's persuading them that you have the highest perceived value and that you're the perfect person to hit the right nail the first time. The fourth thing I'm going to teach towards the end of this is excellent customer experience. Again, most freelancers completely miss this. They think it's just a case of replying to people within the hour. No, of course not. We're going to teach you exactly how to do this like a pro, like a big consulting firm like Deloitte or McKinsey. How do they get customers to be happy all the time? There's a few small tricks you can do to essentially win customers no matter what. And customer experience is so vital because what most freelancers also don't realize is that a lot of the value from your leads and your sales comes after you've worked with the client. Once you want to upsell them or get them to give you referrals from their friends or their colleagues or people they've met before, this is a very good time to actually put that extra work in and just make the whole experience delightful. And the fifth thing is essentially building authority. And this is going to be up to you, but I always recommend it because it's very much a low-hanging fruit that you can essentially just take for yourself, and you can carve out your own niche in the online world that you're very much known for, and it takes very little work. It's not as hard as you may think. It's a very simple procedure to start specializing and building authority in a certain way. So let's get straight into it. How can you beat out 97% of the competition? And that's what we're talking about here. Online, the marketplace is very, very big, and it's very useful to think of freelancing and you competing as a huge marketplace, because each and every freelancer is, in and of themselves, a competitor, essentially. You are competing against tens, hundreds of thousands of people from across the world. Well, if you want to make more money and spend less time actually working, well, how do you do that? Of course, you have to be one of the best. And to be one of the best, that means literally distancing yourself and differentiating not only what you do, but how you do it from everyone else. So looking at this, very simple chart, you can see kind of what the online marketplace looks like right now. On the right-hand side, you see this is essentially the big bulk of freelancing. This is the commoditized skills. Right? This is where most of us start as a freelancer. If you're a videographer, it might just be very basic editing skills that you find on Fiverr. If you're a copywriter, it might just be writing, very standard content for a landing page. Whatever it might be, a developer, whatever. There's very commoditized skills nowadays. If you type PHP into Upwork, how many people and results do you think you're going to get for less than $10? Well, tens of thousands, right? It's now just like buying milk. These are commoditized skills. Well, what's the next stage up from that? This is where most of you probably are, and this is, the higher value skills where you have more experience. So instead of charging $7 or $10 an hour, okay, good, you're charging $25 to $45 an hour. And you might be making quite good money when you do have clients on this, but still you're just in the middle market. You're not exceptional. There's a lot of people like you. You're not differentiating yourself too much. Your portfolio might be good, but it's not good enough, and you're not contrasting yourself enough from others. This middle market area is still fine, it's all good and well, but you're still working crazy hours to make a decent living and still having to chase clients constantly. So where do you want to be? Well, you want to be a premium specialized expert. And this isn't a case of working on something for 15 years and just being crazy good at it. No, it's not that at all. Again, it's about this perceived value. It's just how people look at you. And even if you've only been freelancing for 1 year, if you're quite confident in your skills, if you start implementing the strategies and tactics in this webinar, you're going to be able to do this like tonight. It's literally just a case of branding and marketing. And it's pretty ludicrous. It really depends on who you are. You might be a very introverted person. You might be quite a humble person. You might not want to sell yourself too much, but I encourage you to strongly consider this, because you're never going to grow up or scale in your freelancer career, or even move on to, hiring more freelancers and starting to build an agency if you don't understand these concepts. So to be in the 3%, well, what does that actually mean? That means to be in, someone charging $80 or more an hour. That's, really the cusp of talent. And if you go to Upwork now, if you go to any freelance platform and you search for the people charging this much money, I think you'll be surprised at just how many people there are. And you'll be even more surprised at their feedback and their success. You'll notice that people are much happier with what these high-paid freelancers are actually doing. That they feel like they're getting a premium product, they feel like they're getting a premium service, and that they're spending a lot of money on it. The psychology is very unusual on this. Even if you deliver the exact same value at $75 that you do at $25, the client can be more happy that they spent $75. It's a very weird way this works. So why is now literally the best time to become a freelancer? And of course, there's many variables going on in the outside world, which I don't need to speak about too much, but why it's quite obvious. And this is just the start. There's a huge lack of supply of labor on the market right now. As you can see on this graph here, it's a standard supply and demand graph. If anyone's done economics, you'll know this instantly. But I'm going to quickly describe it for you and tell you why it relates to freelancing and why it's important for you to know. Here on the left-hand axis, you see the letter P. This stands for price. And on the bottom, you see Q, which stands for quantity. And where the red and blue lines meet, supply and demand, this is where the price against quantity, i.e. amount of units, meets itself. And so you can think of this as hours, where Q might be 10 hours and P might be for $30. Well, in some places, the supply and demand meets at $30 an hour, and these are the market rates. But these only really apply to the middle market and the more commoditized markets. Of course, when you get into very niche areas, for example, if you happen to be a Fortran programmer, which is a very kind of ancient programming language nowadays, and there's only a handful of people that can do it. If you happen to have this skill, then this graphic is completely different. And in fact, no one knows the market rates. The perceived value is completely out of whack. Just being able to do it in itself is of high value. Another example of this is Salesforce experts. At my business, Make It in Ukraine, we're essentially recruiters and we do outsourcing. And we had a client come to us who was willing to pay 250 euros an hour for a sales expert because they simply couldn't find someone that was good enough to do the job. You see, some of these graphs only really apply to the middle market and the lower market. So when you start taking yourself to the next level, everything just goes, completely out the window that you hear about pricing and price considerations, and you're able to do whatever you want. So why is now the best time? Well, just in the States alone, just in America, we're not even talking about Europe or Australia or Asia, just in America, there's 1.2 million vacant roles. These roles will have to be filled. And right now, all of the companies are moving remote and freelance, whether it's accounting, social media marketing, HR, all of this will start going more remote and freelance. Moreover, freelance is now the lowest and safest way for businesses to engage labor. It is now the best way. Why? Because you're on contracts. Okay, they don't like you after 1 month, they can get rid of you, right? Of course, there's no overheads, no bureaucracy. They don't have to pay for your healthcare or any of these other things. They can literally just find you, work with you 10 hours, decide if they like you, decide if the culture matches, and so on, and they can pick you up. If not, no problem. This is getting more and more attuned because it's a necessary need right now. People have to still, find new talent, and they have to be able to work remotely and on, contract basis. Businesses are losing money. They want lower risk and they want to be safer nowadays. And finally, freelancers are simply the fastest way for a business to get value, right? Because let's talk about the standard hiring process. For any major company, it can take up to 75 days to hire a full-time employee. How long does it take as a freelancer? Well, it can take one night, right? You can literally, sometimes you might get phoned up by a client on Skype or one of the platforms, and they're like, can you speak right now? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, after your call, they just want to hire you. Great, right? You're starting work the next day or the week after, and you're delivering value for them, almost immediately. That can't happen anywhere else. If they hire a full-time employee or they go looking for a full-time employee, we're talking 2, 3, 4 months before any impact is made. They have the onboarding, the training, and so on and so on. You don't have that with a freelancer, right? Because you're already experts, you're already specialized. You just go in and get the job done. For businesses, this is gold. This is pure gold. And for the market and the market conditions now, as freelancers, although the world might seem like it's burning, actually for you, this is essentially a perfect scenario. This is, literally what many people have been waiting for a long time, which is this remote revolution. So let's actually talk about the, real differentiator here, and it's all a case of specialization. And you can see these 3 very zen-like circles that are on the screen. Well, what do these mean? At the top we have industries and verticals. I don't know if I spelled verticals right, who cares? Industries and verticals. This is essentially either real estate or more like e-commerce, right? Where you're going to specific industries and getting that domain knowledge to fully understand what's happening there. And this can be very useful depending on your skill set. For example, if you're a developer and you happen to specialize in finance, this can be very useful. If you're a content marketer and you happen to specialize in real estate, this can be very useful. Having domain knowledge, especially in very niche domains such as biotech or cryptography or whatever it might be, can be intensely valuable because these companies will struggle to find talent such as yourself. The next bit is the technology moat. Well, what is a moat? So in the old days in Europe, we used to have castles, and around the castles you have this water, and apparently they had alligators, or it might just be the movies, I don't really know. But essentially they would have a drawbridge that lets you walk over it, over the moat and into the castle. But when invading armies are coming, they would pull the drawbridge up and you would just have this huge moat around the castle, and that would actually protect the castle. So when we talk about businesses, a moat is your protection around you. So what is a technology moat? Well, for me, when I teach freelancing and how to improve freelancing, it's essentially you specializing in high learning curve specific tools such as Salesforce or Google Analytics or other tools that you can get very, very good at. And you can then apply with your hard skills in a specific industry to stop other people competing for you. Because you're already going to be the expert. You're going to be one of the best at these specific skills. So when people come looking for you and you're like, yeah, I've spent 2 years and I've done 50 projects with it and I just know it exactly, Guess who they're going to choose? They're going to choose you. And the third and final thing here is hard skills. Well, this is, the main thing that you do day in and day out, right? But it's not just doing it in a generalist style. It's really understanding where your specific focus is and how it can apply to your technological moat and in that specific industry. Now, when you combine these three, you really hit that sweet spot, right? Where you become a super specialized expert. And I can't stress this enough. And in our course, we go, essentially through the exact steps and how you can do this and all of the tools and whatnot and how you might want to think about it. But for you now to just consider this, if your profile just looks like, oh, I do web development, front-end design, I work with these technologies, well, you're at the bottom of the pack. I'm sorry to say it, but it's just true. You're at the bottom of the pack. Well, how would you take that same profile and take it to the next level? Well, you wouldn't do, development and design. You would just do front-end design. And you would just work with one specific tool, maybe Webflow or Bubble. And you would just build these applications in SaaS. And it wouldn't just be SaaS, it would be SaaS for personal finance, right? So you start going through these next steps. And when people are Googling, when people are searching, when people are looking for referrals, you're going to be that perfect person. You are going to be that perfect person. You're also going to be able to command much higher prices because of it. You're going to be the go-to person. So let's move on into more instant specialization. Well, why would you and where would you fit in kind of in this pricing scale? Now, the numbers I'm taking here are more generalist. And of course, they're very relative depending on your cost of living and wherever you live. I'm just going to talk about the generalist prices. On the left-hand side here, you see the $15 to $30 mark. This is the commoditized skills. This is the shit anyone can do and does do online, right? If you're in this band, you need to get out of it as quickly as possible because you're never going to elevate yourself to the next level by just offering a set of skills, right? You're essentially just a tool. That's it. You're just a tool. You're never going to elevate yourself to the next level. The next level after this is hard skills plus experience, where you're really positioning yourself as more of someone that's actually quite good at what you're doing. But again, if you're just positioning yourself on the hard skills and okay, you have 4 or 5 years experience of implementing it, you're still limiting yourself to max $75. And for most of you, you're going to limit yourself to around $45 or $50. You're only going to get the $75 in the more niche hard skills. So how do you get to the next level and what do we actually teach in this webinar that you should be on at the end of these 45 days? Well, it's getting to the $75 to the $250 mark. This is the big bulk of premium pricing, and it's achieved not only from increasing your prices, but packaging it in a certain way. And we're going to talk about this later in a webinar, but it's a really important kind of take home that I want you to acknowledge right now. How you package services and what you sell is just as important in how you deliver it. Okay, because a lot of people, they just work on an hourly basis, they take clients haphazardly, and they're just working on an hourly basis, over a set period of time and taking that hourly payment. That's not good enough. To take yourself to the next level, to actually work less and to actually scale, you have to start packaging your services around your positioning and your specialization. For me, as an anecdotal example, when I was a data analyst and implementer, I used to work for I got to $60, $65 an hour, and I was pretty happy with it. But the implementation would literally, after I did it for a while, would just be 10 or 20 minutes. That's in the literal, that's not the figurative. I would use this tool called Google Tag Manager. I would save a template, and I had a repeatable process that I could essentially just implement in one day max. It used to take me 2 weeks. It used to take me 3 weeks or so. And I would charge the client $2,000 to $3,000 for it. Well, I still wanted to charge a client $2,000 or $3,000 for it because I'm charging on value. I'm not charging on my hourly. I'm charging what I give to the client. And their perceived value was so high. So when I started packaging my services, I could take something from 80 hours, like it used to take me, down to 8 hours and still charge the exact same amount of money, $3,000. $3,000 over 8 hours isn't so bad. And when you factor in the time for lead generation, proposals, customer experience, quality assurance, requesting payments, accounting, risk, you're making really, really good hourlies. And that's what we're going to talk about now, how to take the most value per hour. So once you do specialize and you have all your positioning sorted, you're going to want to look at different aspects of your business. So where do you even find these guys? Where do you even find these better clients that are willing to take packaged services and are looking for specialists? Well, you look for them online. And the truth is, right at the start where you probably are now, they're not going to come to you, right? That's a bit too hopeful. They're not going to come to you, right? So you're going to have to go to them. You're going to have to hunt them down. You're going to have to find them. And there's a few ways to do this. The first way is by building a name for yourself. But the second way is just by proliferating yourself all over the internet, right? Online communities such as Slack groups or the forums or the job boards, really getting in there. And you're picking it by specific skills or where you believe your clients might live online, okay? And there's many examples of this. So what you're really looking to do here is to start posting and engaging with these communities. You want to make your, icon, your avatar known. You want to start becoming, more trusted in these communities and start building that value over time for everyone. Answering questions, asking questions, participating in discussions, whatever it might be, you should be doing this. You should be active in it. You should consider it a part of your job to, essentially evangelize yourself because, right now, and even if you're remote, simply just doing physical networking isn't enough. It just isn't enough. And also you don't have access to as many people. When you're super, hyper, mega specializing like we just went through and you're able to command much higher rates, you're going to be seeking out very certain people from over the internet and you're going to have to go and hunt them down. But you don't just have to do it in the communities. There's a more interesting way to kind of go about it, which is essentially reverse engineering what the demand is looking for. So you're looking at what tools and practices they are using, right? So there's a tool called Built With. You can just Google it, Built With, and you can go to some of your current clients or some of your opportunistic clients' websites or apps, and you can go on Built With and see what tools and technologies they're using. You can see what CRM, what client relationship manager, you can see what analytics, you can see what design tools they're using. Everything is you're able to see it very clearly. And once you know this, you're able to start thinking about what kind of technology and moat you might want to build. You're able to start thinking about what type of technologies you want to get a certification in and build your moat around. And it's going to be hyper value for you. Really, it's going to be hyper value for you. And once you start reverse engineering these demands and these technologies, you're going to have a much clearer picture of what the market actually needs. So on top of that, you also have to really consider what stage are they at. So a lot of freelancers don't do this, but intrinsically you might understand it. If you're working with a solo entrepreneur, they might not be your perfect client. Your perfect client might be a company between 20 and 50 employees that's steadily growing. It might be a company that has over 200 employees, depending on your specialization. Whatever it is, you have to know it because you have to start targeting these companies methodically on an ongoing basis, and simply just expecting them to come to you it isn't really going to happen for a year or so until you build real big authority on your blog and for your content and whatnot. The third thing here is know where the question goers go. Whether it's Quora or a specific forum, wherever it might be, you want to be the one that's there answering the questions because you are the expert. You need to start going where these question goers are going. And this is a really interesting one because no one does this actually. Very little freelancers go and seek people who are looking for answers, but as any of you might know, this is already warm traffic. They're already warm leads. They're already in the kind of momentum of trying to solve a specific problem that you probably know the answer to. So going and answering and helping people pro bono is really good for your lead generation actually. And it's going to find interesting clients that you're building a relationship on by giving value first, by showing your expertise first. And it's even better for your entire relationship with the client over a longer period of time because they're going to recognize you for this. And the fourth and final way is to constantly outreach. Constantly outreach. Make it your daily habit, your morning routine, whatever it might be, to reach out to 5 to 15 clients every single day, just cold. From your targets that you've reverse engineered or you found in the communities, just constantly reaching out to them, asking, hey, you're looking for this, if you do, let me know, and so on, and just getting your face out there. As an individual, if you're doing 50 or 60 cold outreaches every single week, you're going to get a ton of requests, really a ton of requests if you're doing it in a very clean and crisp way. So let's just take a step back and look at the bigger picture of the freelance funnel. So you see here at the top of the funnel, we have all of the possible ways for clients to essentially get to know us, to be aware that we even exist, that we live and we breathe. Well, we spoke about, the work platforms, the direct cold outreach, the forums, the job boards, the online communities. These are all great. And there's one there that we haven't actually spoke about, which is owned assets. Well, what is this? We're going to speak about this at the end of the webinar, but this is essentially you building your authority. This is having clients come to you. And right now, it's maybe not the best time for you to invest in that. You should invest in it over time. And periodically, people are going to come more and more and more. But as you see, we have all of this right at the top. The next stage is the client proposal process. But it's a process. And it can take a little while, and it's very important. It's very important that the client thinks, even if you're not, that you have high demand, right? That you have to deliberate what's going on, you have to understand what's going on. It's very crazy, but actually if you're the first one to reply, if you're very fast at replying, it kind of diminishes your work. If you're instantly available tomorrow, well, why is that freelancer instantly available tomorrow? Why don't they have more work? Where are all their other clients? There's lots of questions that come to mind. It's a process that you should finalize, and we're going to go through this in the webinar also, and we also teach this in the course. So what's in the process? Well, you have the initial communication with the client, you have the first sales call, and you have the first week when you actually onboard and start working. And why is the first week included here? Well, it's also a part of the sales process. You're still selling yourself up until the time the client pays you the first time. Then you start getting into the customer experience. What do you do when the client's won? Then it's go time, right? You start delivering on the value, but after that, you still have the end of the funnel, which again, lots of freelancers miss, which is the client upsells and referrals, where you show even more value to the client. Now, all throughout this funnel, you have to consider your touch points, right? How the client sees you, how they're communicating with you. All of this is really, really important to your overall perceived value. Of course it is. It's all perception, right? So you have to consider through this funnel, how do you treat the leads and how do they then become clients, and which ones do you want to focus on most? Which ones seem the most attractive, the most lucrative to you? What I would suggest is trying all of them, right? Really just trying all of them. Being on all the online communities, constantly checking specific job boards, and always reaching out to clients that you've reverse engineered their tool stack, or you know they're at a certain stage and they might need your labor, whatever it might be. Constantly going and reaching out and actively engaging in these communities and having these, flow of leads in. It's only a good thing, it's never a bad thing. And the second is your sales process. You have to make sure this is as clean as possible. As clean as possible. And it should also be attractive. In the course, we give our students basically examples of how we did proposals to sell $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month clients, whatever it might be. And as a freelancer, you should just treat it exactly the same. It should be very structured with exacting deliverables and whatnot. And once the client's won, it isn't really finished. Even down to how you deliver your contract to the client is important. What service you use, how easy it is for them, how much friction there is. Every single detail needs to be looked at and considered. You always have to be asking, is this the best possible experience for my client? Because your work doesn't start when you literally start on your hard skill working for them. It starts from the very first touch point with the client, when they start communicating with you. That is when your work starts. Because a part of any freelance or client experience is making sure that in their head, they have the right person for the job and everything is going to go great. If that isn't happening, they're never going to be happy. So this is a great way to really think about freelancing, where you start work from the very first touch point, and every other touch point really contributes to this idea of perceived value and what the client's level of happiness is going to be once the job itself is done. So selling, right? We spoke about it in the funnels. How do you even sell better? I'm going to read off a bit of a quote. Perceived value is the customer's evaluation of the merits of a product or service and its ability to meet their needs and expectations, especially in comparison with its peers. Selling in this regard is ultimately everything to do with what the client thinks. That's it. A consultant friend of mine at McKinsey told me that the best way to treat clients is to always be one step ahead, holding their hand and taking them through. So I want you to strongly consider what your selling process looks like right now. How do you position yourself? When someone phones you, do you just say you're a designer and you do cool landing page designs? Do you just say you're a copywriter and you write great B2B emails? Or do you really start confounding this idea of perceived value in the client's mind? Are you making sure that every single touch point of your sales process shows that you know exactly what you're doing and that you're great at doing it? Many freelancers don't do this. Again, it's usually just a Skype call and a quick proposal. Understanding how to sell better is getting into the client's minds and what they need. It's not having the cheapest freelancer possible that can do it as fast as possible. Of course not, no. It's having someone come in and do a great job the first time. So to sell better is to make the client think that you're going to be better. And that's literally it. We go through the details and the proposals and how to do scope of works and whatnot, and there's small tactics, but fundamentally this is the top level truth. It's all about the perception. And if you're selling better right at the start, when it comes to actually delivering the product itself, the client is going to be so much happier with what they even get. So what does the freelance process look like when you're selling, and how do I handle it personally when I was freelancing, and how do I teach my students to do it? First of all, you have the pre-sale, okay? This is hyper important, pre-selling. This is your portfolio, your online content, whoever refers you and how good the referral is, and really how you appear when you're doing your online networking, how people perceive you in the online communities. Are you just a bullshitter that's chatting a lot of shit, or are you actually delivering value for people? The pre-sale is the first impression. It's not when they first speak to you, this is their first impression, and this has to be ultimately great. If someone Googles you, it has to be really, really good. There has to just be good recommendations and 5 stars and this person's amazing at what they do, and so on and so on. The pre-sale here, doesn't limit you in any way. It doesn't limit you from posting online or on your Twitter and whatnot. No, it's not about that. It's just about what the client's going to see in terms of your work. And if they see great stuff right from the start, you're already putting yourself in a great position onto the next stage, which is the initial sales call. Once the client communicates with you and they want to set up a call, you might get a little bit nervous, but if you're already pre-sold, you're coming into it with leverage, right? You're coming into it for leverage. So what should the sales call actually be focused on, and how should it be structured? Well, a lot of freelancers, I hire a lot of freelancers nowadays, and they call me and they say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a great job. I've done lots of stuff like this before. Anything you need, I've got you, and so on. It's all fine and well, but in my opinion, we should change the first sales call to a let's be friends call. Because the best way to treat the first sales call is just to make friends with the person who's trying to hire you, or you want to be hired by. It's as simple as that. If you're able just to communicate on a human, individual, personal level, everything else doesn't matter. When you're on these sales calls, don't try pitching prices and whatnot. Just try talking to the person. Ask them about their life, ask them about the product, try and learn more about it, try and get interested in it, show this interest. It's invaluable, because when they're hiring freelancers, they're hiring on likability. That's literally it. If they like you and they think you're going to do a great job and you've got a great portfolio and they've been pre-sold and they're on this initial let's make friends call and they do become your friend, you're already in the bag, and it's going to help you leaps and bounds later on when you're actually speaking to the client, when you're trying to argue why your work is good, or when it comes to you making payments. Having a higher amount of likability and already be friends in them is going to solve a lot of the problems before they even start. A lot of people don't think of this. The third step of the sales process is actually your proposal and scope, and again, no freelancers are doing this. No freelancers are doing this. If they do a proposal, it's a Word proposal, or something in WhatsApp or Skype. They're not truly fleshing it out. What we teach in the course is how to create a fully written proposal that looks beautiful, right? That looks truly beautiful, that the client's like, oh wow, like they've really thought this through. Because in the proposal, this is part of the client experience. And if you're offering a premium experience here, your perceived value goes way up to the next level, right? Just adding a simple PDF into the process is huge. And next to the proposal should be your scope of work. Again, I don't know why freelancers don't do this. A lot of big agencies do this, it's very obvious, but freelancers don't. So what is a scope of work and why would you need it? Well, you definitely remember in your past client experience, a client saying, okay, but what exactly do I get? What exactly are you going to do for me? Your scope of work is your chance to list out your exact deliverables and what the client's exactly going to get to the T. It's the things that are the end results, and it's your chance to show not only your professionalism and premiumness, but it's your chance to show exactly what you're able of, right? What you're able to achieve. If you're putting in your scope of work just the stuff that the client wants, you're also making a mistake. right? You're also making a mistake. You also want to list all the stuff that you can do, because later on you might want to upsell, or during the sales process, the client might see, oh, you can also do these deliverables, let's package this in, and so on and so on. When it comes to the sales process, this is a really important step, because again, when it comes to perceived value, it's all of these soft stuff around how you treat the client communication and what everything else is going on that really wins the client over and convinces them to pay you a lot of money for a short period of time. It really convinces them that you really know what you're doing. And all of this stuff is templatable. You can just copy and paste it and quickly remake it. It's not going to take you hours to write each proposal. You're just doing, the basic stuff, the first time. We go over this in the course, and a lot of people get quite caught up in it. They want to make a really good proposal for each client. That's not the case. 80-90% of the work is done just by copying and pasting a template and just having that in the first place, because you're already differentiating yourself from your peers. You're already increasing your perceived value. So once you've gone through the pre-sale, they've seen all of your great work online and you've communicated them and you become friends, and then you send them over a very friendly but very professional, specific proposal along with the exact deliverables in the scope of work that you're going to achieve and you can achieve with upsells, and then you've won the client. Then it goes into the last stage of the sales process, which is getting them on a packaged product, an ongoing retainer, a monthly payment for the same thing over and over again. If you're constantly chasing project-based work where you have to always get new leads, you're losing already. Why would you constantly chase new leads if you can just have the same client who, instead of just cutting off with you after 1 month, you work with again the next month and the next month after that? And what happens when you take that exact client and you also upsell them on another package? And what happens if you're such good friends with them and you're delivering so much value and they like you so much that they're telling all their friends about you? That takes care of your entire lead generation. As a single solo freelancer or even a small team, 2, 3, 4 clients is pretty much the max you can take at any one time. Having these guys on constant retainers and upsells and huge pricing is going to be perfect for you, right? This is another important part of your sales process, how you actually deliver the products. Earlier, I gave the example of how I would do it in an e-commerce setup where I essentially had templates. I knew exactly what to do. I could deliver it in one day, and the client would normally expect it to take 2 to 3 weeks and so much time and so on. There's definitely processes and other stuff that you can package up in what you're doing that you can make repeatable, and you can essentially have as monthly retainers that are ongoing. Even if you're doing developer work or front-end design work, if you're a front-end designer, for example, on technology like Webflow, there's lots of stuff to do with hosting, upkeep, and constant ongoing developments that you can have on a retainer basis. Even if you're doing a skill that seems like it has to be paid on an hourly, you can still put that on fixed monthly recurring income, so they're not tracking hours. As soon as you kind of go down to the level of always tracking hours, hour by hour, minute by minute, you're already losing a bunch of money. You have to get away from that as fast as possible. So to recap, when it comes to selling better, first of all, we're really focusing on the idea of perceived value. And a lot of perceived value is just distancing yourself from the peers. So this is quite easy to do. You're just looking at your competitors online and you're seeing what they're doing and you're elevating yourself to the next level. And the way to elevate yourself to the next level is, first of all, to have a great pre-sale, your online owned assets, is to really be friendly and likable and make friends on the calls with your potential clients. You're not giving them the hard sell. You're just becoming friends. And then once you've done that, it's really elevating the sales process using amazing proposals with exacting scopes of work and deliverables. So the client knows exactly what they're going to get. Their expectations are fully managed. They understand the timelines and how you're going to deliver the value. And once you do start delivering the value, this gives you the perfect opportunity to have recurring monthly income as well as upsells and getting all their friends to tell you about it. To sell better is a key component of taking yourself to the next level as a freelancer. You're never going to get from $30 or $40 an hour to $90 to $120 an hour without doing this. So if there's anything you take away from the webinar, please take away these specific steps and give yourself a harsh and critical look at currently how you're doing all of this. So the final part of selling better is something I had to dedicate an entire slide to, because my students right now have the hardest time comprehending it, and it has the most apprehension about actually implementing it, and it's the idea of price flipping. And I'm going to give you a quick anecdotal story in real life with Louis Vuitton. Now, we all know the basics of consumer psychology, right? We know that if something is $100 next to something that's $10, we automatically assume that the quality and level of, sheer goodness in the $100 thing is somehow way better than the one in the $10 thing. Of course, this isn't true, but we know it to be true when we go out and buy stuff. And in the case of Louis Vuitton, they had a very funny problem where, everyone wants fake Louis Vuitton bags. There's fakes everywhere, and they're so close to the quality of the real handmade ones in Italy or wherever they make them that people couldn't even distinguish or tell the difference. The fakes are so good. So Louis Vuitton literally went to China and bought the factories. You can Google this. They literally went to China and bought the factories making the fakes. Why does this matter, and why does this matter to freelancing? Because changing your pricing is also a part of your perceived value. If you charge more money, people will literally think that you're somehow better, that you're more specialized, more of an expert, that you're going to deliver a higher value. When it comes to perceived value, the biggest way to differentiate and the fastest way to differentiate is on your price. And so I have this concept called flipping your pricing. This is something I literally did myself. When I was making $30 an hour, I saw all of my competitors and people around me. What they were doing was incrementally adding $4 an hour here, $6 an hour there, and slowly trying to make their way up. Taking long contracts, maybe for 2 or 3 months, and then adding a couple of dollars and seeing what happens. What I suggest is literally just tripling your pricing. Essentially what I'm saying is, yes, literally just flip your pricing from $30 to $90 an hour, but don't forget the rest. Okay, you might be thinking, well, Shadi, you just taught me how to 3x my income in 45 days. You just, literally 3x your pricing and I make 3 times more. No. Without all of the rest of the stuff, you're fucked. You're really fucked. You're not a finished product. You're not polished. No one's going to work with you. You're just going to stand out like a sore thumb and no one wants to work with you. You're just going to be really highly priced and your pre-sale is going to be terrible. Your processes are going to be terrible. Your sales... You need everything else as well. It's not good enough just to flip your pricing, right? Which a lot of people try and do because they just want to make more money. It doesn't work like that. So you need everything else alongside this, and then you have your pricing at the top. And that's what the clients really want to see. And that's going to signal to them that you have the highest amount of perceived value and you're very different from all of your competitors. And even if you're not confident, if you're charging $35 an hour now and you're not confident in going straight to $100 an hour, that's okay. Even at $65 or $70 an hour, these are still really high price points. And you can start getting to the next level, not only for increasing your pricing, right, but packaging, okay? So what are they looking for? They're looking for you to hit the right nail the first time. If you're charging a premium price, right? If you're charging a premium price, they expect this to be done and they expect that you're the person to do it. They don't expect this from someone at $20 an hour. People fundamentally understand nowadays that when they skimp on freelancing, when they're charging, when they're getting less money, you have the tropes about, let's say, India or Vietnam or other countries where you have, quite cheap online labor, they're charging lower prices and the assumed quality is very, very low. But when you're charging much higher prices, the assumed quality is very, very high. And they think that you're going to hit the right nail the first time, which is integral to your perceived value and the idea of you becoming a specialized expert. The second is, of course, packaging your operations. We spoke about this at length. You're selling the easiest reproduce against the highest value to the client service. Whatever it is that's easiest for you to do, whether it's wireframes for screens or writing ad copy, whatever the thing that you're best at, that the clients perceive to be of the highest value that they just have to get right. For example, Facebook ads, if they're putting a lot of budget behind it, they have to make sure that you're the right content writer for it. If it's a landing page for a big company, they have to make sure that you're going to build a bloody good landing page the first time and not spend 3 months deliberating over it. If they're building an application, they have to make sure that you're not going to completely fuck up their code base, right? There's lots of stuff in here where you package the operations along with the highest value to the client that you can do over and over again on these retainer bases. So you're not just relying on sporadic hourly contracts. The third thing is, of course, flipping your pricing, which we just spoke about. That's it. You need to strongly consider just flipping your pricing. There's enough demand out there, and once you specialize, you're going to be able to command these much higher prices much easier because you have the leverage in the deal, right? Remember that supply and demand graph where you have the price against quantity? Well, if you're in a market of your own with only a few thousand people around the world and only a few hundred people that speak the same language off you, doing the same hard skill, with the same specialism, in the same industry, with the same tools and technologies, then you're golden. Then your pricing is going to be even more attractive because there's going to be even fewer people and it's probably much more rarer types of, businesses, and they're going to, lust after you essentially. You're going to be the ideal person. And the fourth concept here is focus on time. If you're really focusing on stuff that takes you the most time to do, if you're just laboring away hour by hour, you're never going to get to the next stage. Even if you charge at $90 an hour, you're just going to burn yourself out and you're going to work too much. So what you're going to have to work less hours, right? 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week. Maybe you can keep consistent 40 hours a week with multiple clients, juggling multiple projects, always having the anxiety, being in multiple Slack groups or communication channels. Maybe you can do that. Personally, I can't. A lot of my students hate this. It's the fastest way to get burnt out. And in our course and in our coaching, we completely advise against it. What are the things that's taking you the most time? Really? You need to start eliminating this from your business, because you are a business. As a freelancer, you have your contracts, your sales, you pay your own taxes, you do your own marketing, you have your own process. You are a business. What are the biggest inefficiencies within your business? What's taking you the most time and producing the least value for the end client? Get rid of it. Focus on the stuff that takes you the least amount of time and produces the highest amount of value. Sell better by price flipping. Flip your prices, do it right now. Go to Upwork, go to your profile, go to whatever it is. If you have a client call today or tomorrow, just pitch a ridiculous number in your head. Just try it. Just try it and see what happens. And package it in such a way that it just becomes obviously lucrative for the client. If you know you can do something very quick, it's reproducible, and you still want to charge $90 an hour, instead of saying I charge $90 an hour, I say this will cost you $2,500 and we'll do it on a monthly basis. And you know it's going to take you 25, 30 hours max to achieve over that 1 month, you're golden. You can manage 4 clients at once. You can make 10K plus a month. Just like this, using the easiest for you to achieve, highest value products and packages. Sell better by flipping your pricing and package all of your best products while eliminating all of the inefficiencies and waste. So the fourth stage of just having an incredible experience, which is going to increase your perceived value through all stages, is this idea of customer experience. And no freelancers give a fuck about this. So as soon as you start giving a fuck about this, you're already winning. Well, what does excellent customer experience actually mean in these scenarios? So here you see a very interesting bullseye I made on this PowerPoint software. And on the outer ring, you see number 1. Client is happy with your skills, needs no other input. This directly relates to the second slide you saw. Remember, with all the people and you have the 100% and the commoditized products, this is those people. You're just, okay, I have a job, I do the job, I make some money, great. That's it. No customer experience, you're just in and out, you're not really getting anywhere, you're just trying to make a quick buck. This is the first level of freelancing, and you're not going to be able to charge premium pricing, keep clients on retainers, upsell them, ask them for referrals, or anything like that if you're just stuck on this level. Most of you are going to be on the second level, where the client is not only happy with your skills, but you're leading the way and pushing your expertise. This is very important. I gave the anecdote of my friend who works at McKinsey, and he says you should always lead a client by the hand and be one step ahead. A lot of clients are really quite critical, and it's unfortunate. If anyone has 2 eyeballs, they automatically believe that they're somehow a design critic. If they know the language that you're writing copy or content in, they automatically think that they're a English language critic, right? But of course they haven't spent any of the time or invested any money in actually educating themselves or, working on these projects and so on and so on like you have. No, because you are the fucking expert. You are the expert, and too many freelancers fall short here. A big part of the customer experience isn't just being a complete pushover to the client. No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. What clients love is for you to tell them what to do. You're one step ahead, you understand what is best, and you're guiding them through the process in a very smooth and swift way where everything is just working. When they have some pushback or some suggestions or some feedback, you should take that into account and deal with it. But ultimately, you're the expert. They're paying you this 3x premium pricing and all the specialization that comes around it because you're the expert. And you should be hitting the right nail the first time. So for them just to constantly argue and for you to push over, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. You're actually making sure the client won't like what you do. They're going to be confused by it. And ultimately, if you let them influence your work too much, like a lot of freelancers do, and some of my students had this problem also, then the work itself comes out bad because you know what's going best and their composition or whatever they suggest just doesn't work. So you have to be the expert here, and you're also leading the way. Now, once you have these skills on the wrap, you move into the inner circle, right? Where you're really leading the entire process, where you're setting the strategy, right? You're telling the client, Oh, it's going to take 2 weeks, and on these days we're going to have calls, and I'm going to update you here and there, and these things are going to happen, and they do happen, right? When you're not relying on the client to follow up with you for you to show work, but you're following up with the client to get feedback. When you're pushing the client to the next stages, when you're leading the way, this is where you really get to the expert stage, right? And it's just a question of communication skills. That's it. It's just being one step ahead and making sure the client is always comfortable and there's no qualms or worries in their heads. Customer experience is vital, and like I said at the start, most freelancers aren't doing this, so it's a very easy win, guys. If you start implementing this, you're already winning. You're already completely differentiating yourself from the peers. Just give a better experience, and here's how it works tactically, right, and actionably. First of all, when you're engaging with any client, you have set days where you're going to have calls. And you're making sure at a set time, maybe every day or every other day, depending on the project, that you're updating them and letting them what's going on. You're showing them some of the results. You're giving them an insight into what's happening. And when you do jump on the calls, you're giving your suggestions. You're leading the calls. You're not letting them lead the calls and ask questions. You're leading the calls. You're presenting. You're showing what you believe to be the best case scenario for the client, and you're telling them why. You're giving arguments, and you're pushing it yourself. You're not being a pushover. Customer experience is very, very vital, and if you do end up scaling into an agency or any other business, it only gets more and more important. Moreover, once you start pushing and leading and being more dominating in these, relationships, later on down the stage, when it does come to upselling or referring to clients, you're going to have far more leverage here. The client already believes that you know best, and so they're going to be happy to share you with other people. Contrast the third stage in the middle, where you're leading the way and delivering the work in the right way, communicating ahead of time, giving updated schedules, timeline, against where you're just doing the work, waiting for the client to hit you up, showing some stuff and whatnot. It's vastly different. This is also a great way, right, to just completely differentiate, so I want you to strongly consider it. And it doesn't stop there, right? It doesn't stop there. It flows on to our final and fifth point, which is about building authority. Now, all 4 stages that come before, whether it's selling better, customer experience, always online network, and whatever it might be, it all builds into this idea of building authority, brand perception, and the quality of delivery. So here you can see a quick chart. Now, on the x-axis, towards the right-hand side, you see quality and impact of delivered work. And at the top, you see level of authority and branding. And depending on which ones you focus on, it's going to put you in a different quadrant. So let's go through them. At the bottom left, you have Fiverr drop servers where you're just reselling other people. You have the majority of Upwork and all beginner freelancers. This is where the quality and impact of work is quite low. It's just a commoditized service, and they have basically no authority, right? You basically have no authority. And so you go into the bottom left, and this is where you're making the lowest amount of money, right? You're not commanding the premium pricing. If we go one up, we get to the influencers. These are the bloggers or the people you might see on Forbes or people who just bought PR and trying to hack the system. They're not delivering high quality work. They haven't spent years mastering and crafting their hard skills. They've just tried to essentially hack their influence and get ahead through different channels. Again, it's still not the perfect situation. It might seem nice, but they're not really doing anything. And a lot of the time, these agencies will get bad reputations because, of course, everyone gets drawn to them. They have big names, or the freelancers are very skilled. But when you actually end up working with clients, the clients aren't satisfied. They're not happy. Why is that? Well, a big part of freelancing is about managing expectations. Any client work, in fact, is about managing expectations. And if you have just influence and branding, but you're not actually able to deliver, like a lot of these influencers do, then the client expectations, which were very, very high going into it, are going to be completely undermatched and underdelivered, and they're going to hate you. So everything's going to go wrong. So where are most of you sitting at right now if you're watching this video? You're sitting in the bottom right quadrant. You are specialists. You might be on Upwork. You probably worked 3, 4, 5 years plus, and you're making around $40 an hour on average or more. This is quite a good position. It's quite luxurious. You can work from everywhere. Everything's fine, but you still have to work full time. So how do you get to the next stage? Well, you start working on your authority and branding. In the top right quadrant, you see the industry leaders and experts. Now, you might be saying, well, I can't get there, I can't do this. And I'm not going to give you some motivational mindset speech on why anyone can achieve anything and you totally can do it. I'm just going to tell you the logic and why it will work. At the first part of this webinar, we talked about specialization. What comes with specialization when it comes to building authority is you're already in a niche, right? So you're already in a very small pond. So whatever you're talking about online, whenever you do start to build your brand presence, right? and it's very easy, we'll show you in the next slide. When you start to do this, you're already in the top 0.1% of all your competitors. You're already winning, right? Because you're not just being compared against very, very niche people who specialize in the exact same things as you, which is going to be very, very few, by the way. You're also competing against all the generalists. So by building authority in these specializations, you're essentially growth hacking your influence, because you're going to be the expert almost de facto by default. You're already the person that's venturing into these new territories. And as we get more and more tools and industries and we move more and more online, it's going to be more and more important to move into these specializations and build your authority. And the good thing is, it's not a question of doing it like a hustler. And by that, I mean over a short period of time. You can build authority over a long period of time and have very high impact even in the short term. There's some small things such as having a simple personally branded website, personally branded LinkedIn, which we're going to give to you at the end, by the way. It should be in your email. And it all links together. You're already in the top 0.1% just by doing that. So there's a few quick hacks you can do to already convey this idea of authority and whatnot, and really give off that high amount of perceived value. You can also do this by going through different stages. And here you see a kind of pyramid of influence, which I suggest to all of my students and even clients, not just freelancers, but also agencies, and how they can build their authority. On the bottom block, you see owned assets. So here we have great portfolio, branded asset, branded social. If you haven't done this, go right now. Well, don't go right now, go after this webinar and literally implement it. It's very, very simple and it has huge return on investment. So first of all, your portfolio. Have all of your stuff on your own personally branded website in one place. Use Webflow, use Card, use some sort of tool and technology that's very simple, drag and drop builder that you can implement yourself, even if you're not a designer or a developer, and you can just put your stuff on there and show off what you've done in the past. Moreover, make sure everything you give off is branded, whether it's proposals, whether it's your email signature, whatever it might be. Make sure it's some sort of brand. It can literally just be your face with whatever your branded title is. And branded titles and whatnot we get into in the course. It's not really needed for now, but just the way you position yourself. And finally, your social media. For most of you, it might just be your LinkedIn, but I would also strongly consider branding your Twitter or Instagram, just depending on what hard skills or industries you're going into. Whatever people are going to Google and going to be interested in searching you for. If you're a designer, it might be something like Behance. A developer, it might also be GitHub. So you have to make sure that these are also taken care of. Just by doing this, you're going to have huge impact on your authority. And then we go one stage up. So what I can basically tell students is that you should do the bottom level no matter what. If you're already making $30 plus an hour, then you should already be trying to brand and specialize and go to that next level. But the next stuff is all kind of questionable, and it depends how much of an authority you want to be. So in the second stage, we have guest posts, high value content, and high influence social media. What do these actually mean? Well, first of all, guest posts, that's when you go and write on other people's or institutions' blogs. So you as a writer, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces a month, whatever capacity you have, you go and pose yourself as an expert on other high traffic websites, which even if they don't get a lot of traffic, if people Google your name plus your skill and they're trying to research you as a client, they're going to find these articles that you're writing on cool websites. This is really cool. This is a part of the pre-sale, right? This is a part of the pre-sale. A lot of authority building is a part of the pre-sale. It's what clients see before they actually get into the sales process with you. The next is high value content, and this just depends on you. If you want to build a blog, if you start wanting to write about what you're doing, this can be quite useful, especially since you're specializing so heavily. Whatever you're writing on your blog is probably going to be moving, the marker forward and actually innovating in your field. And that's not really an exaggeration. To give you an example from my personal life, I run this company called Make It in Ukraine, and we had a huge problem trying to find content writers that knew how to speak about recruiting, outserving, and the related fields, right? So we were very willing to pay a content writer a ridiculous amount of money per article just to get each article out because they had the domain knowledge and knew what was happening. But that content writer would also go off on their own and write about these things on their own personal website. And that's what attracted us to them so much. They understand the exact tools and the exact processes and the exact industry and whatnot, and they just got it. So this was awesome for us, and this is a great way to show what you're doing. And there's very easy ways to kind of hack the content and whatnot and get it out fast. And the third thing is high influence social. Of course, this is quite useful. But depending on your field and depending on how far you want to take this, either you want to become, the best in the world and stay as a freelancer, or you want to build it into an agency and scale it at a later date, you should start considering like your actual presence on social media and who's following you, building a name for what you do. And don't worry how niche it is. I've got friends who build niches in growth hacking recruiters, like recruiters that use specific tools and technologies to growth hack the process. He has a community of like 5,000 or 6,000 people. This is very achievable. So building your own niche and building your own social following and influence is definitely doable if you specialize right. And finally, at the top level, this is probably what most of you don't want to do, but if you want to get to, the ultimate level, if you want to be charging $250 or $400 an hour, this is what you kind of have to do. And it's events, books, and podcasts, and it speaks for itself. If you're the preeminent, right, if you're very, very vocal and very, very much in the public kind of attention and people can find you easily and you're on tour speaking and you have your own bloody book, then of course you're gonna be able to command quite high prices. The perceived value of what you've done is going to be huge. If you literally wrote a book on what you're doing, do people think you're better than a $10 an hour freelancer, or do they think you're worth $200 an hour? Of course they think you're worth $200 an hour. So building authority, again, what is it? Well, it's all just a part of this illusion called perceived value. It's just a way to differentiate yourself from the peers. And every one of you watching this now should go and brand all of your social content and create a portfolio on a personally branded website. It's a very easy win. It's a very easy way to increase your amount of pre-sale when someone goes and Googles you. That's fine. If you want to take it to the next level, move on to the second stage. Start going into social influence, posting other people's blogs and posting on your own blog. And if you're already doing that and you're already commanding quite high rates, let's say $75 to $125 an hour, and you want to get, super good, that's when you move on to the events, the books, and the podcasts. Building authority, a step-by-step guide for freelance, simple. So that was the entire webinar, and those are the 5 clear steps of how to rapidly and very quickly increase your perceived value and get to 3x in 45 days. Let's go through the steps very quickly. First of all, you need to specialize. If you haven't specialized, what are you doing? You're just a commodity, you're like milk. You may as well just be milk. Go to the supermarket and sit in the freezer section, you're milk. Go out and specialize. Find the best industry that you're most interested in with technologies and tools that other people have steep learning curves to use, even better if they have certifications. Go out and learn those. And specialize in your hard skills. Don't just be a generalist. Generalists don't command the highest prices. Specialize in a specific type of hard skill that you know your clients are going to demand in these industries and with these specific tool technology stacks. Next, get fucking better clients. Stop looking on platforms and waiting for them to come to you. Go out and find clients. Be methodical. Be crazy with it. Non-stop. Always have clients coming to you. Always be exposing yourself. Always be outbound. Always reach out, whether it's LinkedIn, cold email, communities, job boards, forums. You have the whole internet at your disposal. You have no excuse not to reach out to at least 10 people every single day and inquire if they need your services, or at least let them know that you're the potential person to go out and actually do the services for them. And third of all, sell better. Sell better. Treat yourself like a business and go out and fucking sell better. Think of the whole process we went through today, from the pre-sale all the way down to the upsell. That process is the perfect way to show your perceived value. In fact, it's really where 80% of it goes into. Focus on this for now. Understand that you're not going to get to the next level just by selling like the way you are, just by messaging on Skype and jumping on a call. It's not good enough. Take yourself to the next level through your processes and how others perceive you in the outside world. And fourth, excellent customer experience. Once you've flipped your pricing, they're going to expect a lot of you. When you're premium, the expectations also go up. Make sure the customer is always comfortable. Always be one step ahead, holding their hand. Never let them be the one to first reach out to you and ask for feedback, because then you're always failing. You're always one step ahead. You're always on the ball. You're leading the process. You are the expert. You know what's best. And fifth and finally, to really elevate yourself to the next level as a freelancer, use high ROI, easy input methods to start building authority. Start branding your social content, start branding yourself online, start working towards an end goal that might be 2 or 3 years down the line, but start doing it now. There's very easy, achievable things that you can do straight away that we went over in this webinar, and there's no excuse not to do them. If any of this interested you in any way and you got like a lot out of it, which I fucking hope you did, because it was like pretty intense, dense information one after the other, then I highly suggest you clicking the button down below and see about our course. Our course is very simple. We just go into the details and tactics and the exact methods upon which you can create all of this for yourself, whether it's the sales process and how to do proposals, or how to use leverage videos to reach out to potential clients, or if you're actually, treating the client in a certain way, how do we do that? What specific tools can we use to quickly build our authority? How can we quickly distribute content? Whatever it might be, we have it all in the course, and we have an awesome community of freelancers just such as yourself who are also trying to elevate from $30 or $40 an hour way past $100 an hour and are doing it on a daily basis. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can email. There's like an email at the bottom. But I suggest just hitting the intercom, the live chat, and you can talk to one of our live chat agents at any time. We offer a 45-day guaranteed refund. It's literally no questions asked. We're so confident that you're going to be happy that you can just go, hey, Shadi, I want a refund. Send me my money back. And even if you didn't watch a single video or did absolutely nothing, we're still going to send you the money back straight away. That's a pretty good fucking deal if you ask me. Thank you for watching this webinar. My name's Shadi, and I'm glad I was able to impart some knowledge on you, and I hope you got a lot out of it, and have a beautiful day.